Hello and welcome to Fathering Through the Storm. My name is Johnny Limpus and this episode is a big one. This touches on the topic of mental health and having a partner who has extreme mental health challenges. This is a content warning that, as with all our episodes, prepare yourselves for some intense lows, but also some real inspiration and highs as well. The person I'm going to be interviewing today is called Howard. He's 71 years old, and two of the things that really stood out to me in this episode are, number one, that a lot of men go through tough times and they're very, very good at putting those experiences in a box. And they'll put that in a box and they won't open it up for many, many years. What Howard was brave enough to do with me in this interview was open up a box that he doesn't go to that much and look at it from a different perspective. Not simply telling the story, but also telling the story of him as a father through that experience. The other one is that it's easy to judge in stories like this, and I think even Howard at times judges himself. But what stood out for me is that actually this isn't just a story about fathering through the storm, but it's really a love story. It's about how Howard got through this, and this was a 15-year storm, and what enabled him to stay strong and resilient and continue to be there for his children and also to be there for his partner Leslie through this. It's a real privilege to introduce this episode. It's one of the most intense storms we may ever cover, but it's a real privilege to share it with you all. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Howard, welcome to the show. For those that don't know anything about you, could you just briefly introduce some little facts about yourself, who you are, etc.?
My name is Howard. I'm 71 years old. I'm retired. I'm married to the lovely Annie. We live in Wantage and we have 6 grown-up children, all from previous marriages. Annie has 2 children from her previous marriage, and I have 4 children from my previous marriage. I'm big into music, playing music. This is a very small instrument, isn't it? And photography. I love doing those 2 things, and that's me.
And I have seen you play live music many times, Howard.
You have.
For that. So we will get into a pretty big discussion today.
Sure.
But before we do that, let's start with the conventional chat between men, which is football.
Oh, joy.
We're right in the middle of the World Cup, Howard.
Oh, really?
What's your relationship with football?
I don't do football, but I have got this most fantastic story, which will make you jealous, if you don't mind me saying.
Okay.
Here we go. Well, it's about my mum and dad. They owned a country cottage in the wilds of County Durham. I was in the middle of nowhere. It was bleak, no electric, no gas, no water, no sewage, no toilets. A bit like a barn, really. A bit basic, but it's what they could afford. And we loved it, right? Now, we went there on holiday. Are you ready? In the last week of July, 1966.
Ooh, nice.
Can you see where this is going?
Yeah, go for it, Howard. Continue.
All right. So, anyway, the postman, he used to travel across the fields. He came to deliver the post. Anyway, we talked to the postman and we said how sad we were because England were in the World Cup and we were going to miss it. The postman, God bless him, invited us to his house in the next village. So on the Saturday, on the 30th of July, 1966, me, Mum and Dad walked across the fields a couple of miles to the next village, and we watched the match in our postman's house with tea and biscuits. What a great memory, eh?
Oh, and the
It was
winner.
really good.
How big was the postman into football? Was he delighted when England won?
I think he was just a nice guy. Postmen tend to be people persons, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they meet people the whole time, they chat on the doorstep. My dad loved football. My dad's a big Newcastle supporter. I mean, I wasn't a supporter. I still aren't.
How happy was your dad when England won the World Cup?
Over the moon, delighted, thrilled. I mean, I was too.
That is emotion.
It was a big deal.
It'd
It was
be
a
massive
really big deal.
I'd love it if who knows if it will be this World Cup, but I'd love a World Cup in my lifetime for us to win it.
Yeah. Bear in mind,
really
the television was probably black and white and about this big.
Wow.
But we were gathered around it, and it was great. It was
Wow.
really great.
What a postman.
Yeah, what a postman. That's right.
So-
First class postman. Aha.
Damn right. So we've done the conventional chat. It's always good to touch on football.
Yep.
But this isn't about conventional chats between men. This
No.
is about more meaningful conversations sometimes. And
Sure.
we're going to talk about a storm. And why don't you just give us an introduction to the context of that storm, some of the key facts. What is the
Sure.
kind of storm we're talking about here, Howard?
Well, pretty nasty. My story relates to my first marriage and the discovery that my wife Leslie had very severe mental health issues. Her illness was unknown to either of us when we got married, and over the years it went completely out of control. And there followed lots of very nasty and very dangerous incidents during our 15 years of marriage. I'll give you some short examples, and I'll give you a longer one afterwards. Leslie put 2 of our children in our car. She attached a hose pipe to the exhaust with a view to killing all 3 of them. Thankfully, she didn't follow it through. She rang her psychiatrist at Littlemore in desperation. But of course, she was arrested by the police, and they came and sectioned her. They handcuffed her and sectioned her and took her off. That's one example. She overdosed regularly. That was her way of dealing with her depression and all that entails.
And how many children did you and Leslie have? 4 children. And just as a backstory, I'd love to know just a little bit how you met and what the relationship was like at the start, because I know you had, and there's a deep love.
Yeah.
You and Leslie. Can you tell a
It
little
was
bit about
wonderful. We were soulmates. We fell in love and we had the most wonderful time together. We were just great mates. We were great friends. We got on with each other. And when she became ill, it was a surprise to her and to me. She didn't know what was wrong with her. I didn't know what was wrong with her. I couldn't understand it. I hadn't come across mental illness in any form previously. I didn't know what it was. And so when, for example, she set fire to this house, the house that we're in now, this house here.
Yeah.
She set fire to it. Her depression became so deep, and her distress became so otherworldly. It was bonkers. She was, this was the lass I'd fallen in love with and loved deeply. She was admitted to psychiatric hospitals, well, Littlemore usually, 17 times during our marriage. Sometimes voluntary, but sometimes she was sectioned. And it always was preceded by a mental crisis that she had. She would then follow that with an overdose, usually. She'd be admitted to hospital, and then I'd be left to pick up the pieces with the house, the children, work, and visiting her.
And for the benefit of the listeners, you mentioned that you're now married to Annie. Do you mind letting people know, how did that marriage to Leslie end? Are you happy doing that?
Of course. How did I find out that she'd killed herself?
Just to make it explicit, it didn't end in, we haven't mentioned that yet, but it didn't end in divorce or anything.
It didn't end. It did not end in divorce, no. So we were married in September 1980, and in August 1995, was 15 years later, she ended her own life in hospital. She hung herself in the shower room at Littlemore.
And so there's a number of very, very challenging storms to get through there, Howard. And thank you so much for going back to that time for us, because it was quite a long time ago now.
I put a lot of it away in my subconscious.
Absolutely.
So it's quite hard. It's hard enough to dig out the facts. It's much harder to connect to it emotionally. Well, it's very difficult to connect to it emotionally. Yeah.
When we talked about it, you said there was an initial reaction to it, how you initially tried to help Leslie through it. Could you talk us through that a little bit, your initial response?
My initial response was not to help her to get through it, because I didn't know what it was, and neither did she. So as her behavior changed, I was completely puzzled. I didn't know that the person that I knew and I'd fallen in love with changed. She went to the doctors and she was diagnosed as psychotic with manipulative behavior. That was the official view. So she changed fundamentally, and she would tell lies. She became a different person, not all of the time, but enough of the time to, I didn't know how to handle it. I had not the faintest idea how to handle it. I didn't know what was going on.
If you didn't know how, what was your initial response?
I didn't know. I don't know now, and I didn't know then. I was muddling through, to be perfectly honest. I did not know. I couldn't, someone who changes in personality, there's nothing to get hold of. There's nothing to fix. I just went, we both just went from day to day with this bizarre situation.
And you mentioned that did shift at one stage. And how did that, what was the moment that did shift? And then what did it do for you?
It did shift. And it was, I can tell you exactly what that was, because that is so important. I was invited to attend her when she was in Littlemore. She was in Littlemore an awful lot. She was in Littlemore probably half of the 15 years that we were together, if you added them all up. I was invited, would I like to attend the psychotherapy sessions? Not for me, for her, just sit in and listen. I said, yes, I'd love to. And I did that, and it helped me more than I can. It helped me more. It helped me completely. Nothing else had helped me. And he was able to explain why Leslie was cutting. She cut an awful lot. Her body was covered in cuts. I had not come across this before. I'd never heard of it before. I thought, why would anyone cut themselves? I couldn't manage it. I couldn't navigate it. And he was able to explain what it was all about and other things. I was just listening to the whole business, and I could then understand the distress that she wasn't just being weird. And I was, from that moment onwards, we both were facing the world together. We tackled the problems together. Her ODing didn't cause me any, it didn't cause me any stress. I could understand what was going on.
So it was that
And
understanding, understanding helped shift.
It was understanding, yeah.
And once you had that, the phrase you used, we were facing this together.
Yep, side by side, facing it together. And it got worse and worse and worse, but we didn't. We clung onto each other. We were doing it, as.
Can you give me an example of some of the things you faced together?
This is a big one, because well, there's lots of bad things happen, but there was a particular incident which it led to a prolonged family tragedy as a result of Leslie's illness. Anyway, one evening we were at home, and Leslie took an overdose, as she did now and again, and she was admitted to hospital. So off she went to hospital. I couldn't go with her, of course, because I was looking after the children. From that point, I went to bed, I got up, I put my suit on, ready to go to work, I went downstairs, and then I was frozen on the spot. I was in such a bloody mess, I didn't know what to do. I had 4 children upstairs, asleep, aged 6, 3, 17 months, 3 months. It's a baby. So a baby, a toddler, and 3 and a 6. I was due to go to work. I was due to go and visit Leslie in hospital to see how she was getting on. I couldn't really do any of them, and I didn't know which way to turn. I was in such a bloody mess. I didn't know what to do. So of course I rang me mum. It's always a good thing to do, as long as you get on with your mum. I rang me mum. She said, Howard, go and get some help. She in uncertain terms, she said, ring the social services, ring the doctor, ring social services. I rang social services, and I explained to them what the situation was. And they said that I could have access to their temporary foster care facility, local families taking kids who are in trouble. And I agreed to that. I didn't. That was Hobson's choice as far as I was concerned. I think I'd do the same again, to be honest. I've thought it through 1,000 times. Yeah. I dropped my 2 youngest off at foster families, quite local, one in Abingdon, and just nearby. And I would be looking after the 2 eldest kids, and I'd be sorting out childminding, all ready for when Leslie had recovered and came back from hospital. However, the whole thing went completely wrong. I got my toddler back in 2 weeks. So I was looking after the 3 kids. I was fine with that. I could manage that. Leslie would not agree to having our baby boy home. She said no. She couldn't cope. She couldn't cope with that level of parenting. And I knew she couldn't cope. So we didn't fall out over it. I knew she couldn't cope. And it was a situation that went on and on and on. Instead of being 4 weeks, it was 21 months that our baby boy was in temporary foster care. Anyway, the longer this goes on, the more difficult it is for you to have children back in their natural family. So I wrote a letter to social services asking if they could help bring him back to our family. And instead of saying, yeah, we'll help you, they decided to take me to court, because in those days, social services were very heavy-handed.
Right.
They just were. They used to do some funny things. It annoyed me. It frustrated me. But I thought, well, it's a hoop to jump through. We'll go to court, and then we'll have a homecoming, and all will be well. Little did I know, the date for the court hearing was set. It was the magistrates' court in Wantage, and things were going, according to their plan, but, a plan. And out of the blue, social services received an anonymous letter, handwritten letter, saying that Leslie was a danger to her son and that he should not be allowed to return home. And I saw the letter. I asked social services to show me the letter. They showed me the letter, and it was written by Leslie. It was written by my own wife. She had sabotaged the return home. This escalated the whole thing from Wantage Magistrates Court to Oxford County Court, blah, blah, blah. I pleaded my own case. The judge ruled in my favour and said, the judge ruled in my favour on the condition that I became the sole carer of the children and that Leslie was not allowed to be left in charge of our youngest. And I thought, well, I understood that. I could work with that. So what I did was I went to work and I demoted myself. I was a manager at work to work from home. So I took a drop in salary. And from then on, I worked from home, looking after the kids. And I mean, he was my son. I'm the dad. There's nobody else would do it. And it was just the thing I just did. It was the right thing to do. And of course, working from home is not the thing, wasn't the done thing back then. It is now, but it wasn't back then. And it led me they made me redundant a year later. Yeah. So we had to go on benefits and things were really tough. But, Leslie and I were together. Leslie and I were together on all this. So, when we worked out how to cope with all of this stuff, we coped with it between us. It just got worse and worse, but we coped with it between us.
Yeah, and there was an example that I thought was, as you mentioned, we did it together. And
we did. Yeah.
You mentioned again with that letter, did you ever ask Leslie, did she write that letter? Because you recognised the handwriting, you had it examined.
I played along. I played along with it. I remember saying to Leslie, I'm going to take it to a handwriting specialist. I didn't need to do that. I knew who'd written it. And we were playing a little game. I was playing a little game, if you like. I couldn't undermine her. I mean, that would be the last thing to do.
Yeah.
And then eventually I said to her, weeks later, I said, Leslie said, yeah. I said, you wrote that letter, didn't you? And she said, yeah, I did. That was it.
And you never mentioned it again, did you?
No, there's no point. I knew she'd written it. I knew she'd done it I knew kind of why she'd done it. She just couldn't cope. And we were facing all this stuff together. So there was no point in me making a fuss about it, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
I had to just work with it.
And I've read, you very kindly put a lot of this down into a kind of written document for me to kind of prepare for this conversation. And I'd say it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever written, but also one of the most beautiful, in a way, love stories as well, of your desire to support Leslie and continue to love and respect her through all of this as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's obviously your passion for your children there, but also your love for Leslie through there as well. What did you learn about yourself through all of this?
That's a funny one, because I didn't learn anything about myself until years after Leslie died. And the reason is because I was head down, working, looking after the children, looking after Leslie, waiting for the next crisis. I had nothing left. I was just full on the whole bloody time. Looking back, I think I figured out why I was able to get through it. And this is quite recent. It never crossed my mind throwing the towel in. Not once, never crossed my mind. Because I was told by the mental health services that in a lot of these cases, guys can walk away. Never crossed my mind. And I thought, I don't know why that was. It was because I was so busy. But I'll tell you what was underneath all of that is because the day we got married, I stood next to Leslie. Sorry.
Take your time, Howard, take your time.
And I promised before God to look after her in sickness and in health, as she did to me. And that was a sacred vow. And that's what underpinned it all until, death us do part, which is what happened. So it wasn't just that I was busy. I'd made a vow and I meant it,
And what do you think, often when we have these conversations, there's a determination and a purpose that drives men through some of these storms, but sometimes there are also other people that come in to help at certain times.
Yeah.
Are there any stories of moments when you may feel right up to the limit and then someone else comes in or something comes in and you think, I'm not on my own here?
The main help was Mum, but of course she lived up near Newcastle. So I really didn't get any emotional support at all from anybody at all, ever.
And for how many years was that, Howard?
15.
15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I had a particularly good friend, Charlie, used to come and help me. Social services were not very helpful at the time. They did give me some financial support, actually, and some of them were. The mental health team were fantastic. They were helpful. They were really supportive. I mean, nobody came to help me until after Leslie died, and that was the pastor of our local church who came to help me. Well, he'd heard about my plight. It was a lady who was at our church, and she had heard about my situation. She'd heard that my wife had died under tragic circumstances, and she told the pastor of her church about me, and he decided that he could help. And he rang up. That's what he did. So I had this phone call out of the blue. This is after Leslie died, right? So I was a single dad looking after my 4 children on my own, and no support. No support. I mean, as soon as someone dies, everyone disappeared. We had meetings and we had people coming round. We had this, that. As soon as Leslie died, just stopped.
So that was the very much services side of it completely stopped.
Completely stopped. There's no follow-up, nothing like that. Not even a phone call. Are you all right? No. Anyway, so I got this phone call from this pastor of the church, local church, Wantage Community Church, from this guy called Clive. And he said, "Hello, Howard, you don't know me, but blah, 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 blah." And I was thinking, give us a rest. All I could think of was Comedy Vickers on, a TV drama. And I thought, you don't know me. Why are you ringing me up? Harsh fellow that I was. No, I wasn't really. I didn't know who I was talking to, and I didn't know why I was talking to him, other than he rang me. And he said, "It would be all right if I popped round." And I said, "Yeah, of course. I mean, pop around. Just to have a chat." He said, "Yeah, come around, have a chat." And so, the next few days, this guy came round. I'm looking over there. I can still see. I can imagine him coming around the corner on his little Vickers bicycle, and all I could see was a sitcom. And he was lovely. He was great. He came round and he walked into the house. And the thing that he did, which touched my heart and still does, was he just got about tidying my kitchen and emptying my dishwasher, and that touched me so deeply. Helped me. He didn't say, "Do you need help?" Because I can tell you now, I would have said, "No, I'm fine." I would have said, "I'm fine."
Yeah.
I know that. 100%. I'm fine. No problem. I'll do it later. He didn't ask me. He just got on with it. And that really touched me. It really touched. It was the nicest, kindest thing. It's an oasis. It was just fantastic. And he did some lovely things. He invited me to go on a walk up Mount Snowdon. Fatty me. I don't do exercise.
What's the timeline from the invitation to Mount Snowdon? So,
just
how long
just
since
a few.
Leslie's
not long
death?
after. I'll tell you how. August, September. 2 months after Leslie died.
2 months. Wow. So he did a dishwasher, and then you're next being invited up Snowdon.
Yeah. There's no stopping me then. I don't do exercise. And he said, "There's a team of us going." And I thought, well, I don't know how to get there. He said, "Oh, we'll do a lift." And I said, yeah, okay. And I'd been so touched by him, and I knew that he was a good man and a generous man and a kind man. And I knew I needed some help, and I knew I needed a friend. So I agreed. Foolishly, I agreed to walk up Mount Snowdon. Boy, that was difficult, I tell you. But I remember what he did was he slipped me an envelope. He said, "There's some money in there." I said, "Oh." And he said, "We'll need to pay for fuel, and we'll need to pay for some food while we're there staying over." He said, "But use this to pay so that you're not exposed as someone who doesn't have much money," because I was on benefits, And so the kindness was just quite overwhelming, really. So anyway, off we went to Mount Snowdon. I got to the top with a great deal of difficulty, but I got to the top. Of course, first thing I wanted to do was ring Leslie and tell her.
Yeah.
It was a sad moment, it's bittersweet. That's my phrase for a lot of times I use. So I rang my mum. But I wanted to ring Leslie and tell her what I'd done, because she'd be proud of me.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. And this is a podcast of hope as well, Howard. And I think the reason I wanted to invite you on here is because I don't see you as a man who is beaten by life. And I knew you long before I knew this story. And I was amazed when I heard just the facts of 4 children, single father. Where's the hope in all this? If you can find any hope in it and any inspiration for maybe other men who are going through something similar.
Well,
either what have you learned or advice you'd give to others that could give them hope?
I don't like giving advice. I think there's value in telling people your story, and I wouldn't try and mold it into advice. But one of the things I would say is that things don't stay the same forever. They seem as though they are. You're in a bad situation. There's no way out. Well, there is. There's always hope. Always. I mean, things never change, never stay the same all the time. Tell yourself that, because there is always hope. Even though you can't see it, that doesn't mean it's not there. There is always hope there. And like I did with my mum, I didn't know how to sort myself out when I was in such a pickle. I asked my mum to sort me out, in effect. And she said, Howard, get some help. Howard, ring social services. I wouldn't have done it. So get help. And if you don't know how to get help, talk to your mates and ask them to get you some help, or ask them to help.
Yeah.
But things will change.
You say ask for help, but it had to get quite bad for you, didn't it, before you actually did ask for help?
Correct.
My sense is that for myself, as well as many other men, asking for help, it has to get pretty bad before we get to that point there. How can we make it easier for others? Like you mentioned the pastor who literally didn't ask, he just did.
I don't think I'm scared of asking for help. I just didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't a clue.
Wow. You were in an age where they didn't really talk about mental health as much as they do now.
I'd not heard of it. I'd not come across it or heard of it. Mental health was not a phrase.
So actually, education does help us ask for help, because then at least we're aware of what we don't know.
Totally. Things are quite different now. I think it'd be met with sympathy and understanding, practical help, all sorts of things. And it didn't exist. I mean, the simplest of things like working from home wasn't allowed, because if you worked from home, you were obviously a cheat and lazy. Yeah, right. It was a bit backward in the dark ages when I was a lad.
Wow. And thank you. I don't know. I just feel it's the lessons of previous generations often make it a bit easier, not easy, but easier for future generations. Like you said, whether it be dealing with mental health, dealing with loss, all of these stories we tell, we realize we're not the first people to have done it. And actually, sometimes there were lessons learned previously. Is there anything else you want to say, Howard? We've got this opportunity. It's completely up to you. No question. Just anything else you want to kind of say here before we come to an end? Not really.
There was one mistake one mistake I made. I made lots of mistakes. There's one particular, it wasn't a mistake. It was I had a wrong perspective, because I came out the other end of, Leslie died. Then I looked after the kids for 3.5 years as a single parent, and met Annie and all the rest of it. I thought I'd come out of it as some sort of hero, sort of. And I just was an ordinary guy. I was stressed out a lot of the time. My patience wore thin regularly. And I did get through it. But everyone was telling me how wonderful I was. And double-edged sword, that one. Because it was tough, it was really tough. Yeah. That doesn't answer the question, does it? Yeah, ask me a different question.
No. You said double-edged sword, that one. Everyone was telling you were wonderful. What were the two edges? Like the one edge is, wow, I'm a superhero. But what's the other edge?
Yeah. Which is, of course, obviously true. Well, the fact that I did the same as most people do, and I made mistakes every day. Everybody mistakes. But, being a hero gives the impression that you don't make mistakes every day. In fact, you don't make mistakes at all if you're a hero.
Yeah.
Not true.
Yeah, absolutely.
I made mistakes every day. Obviously, I don't now, because I'm old and wise.
But it's interesting. You made mistakes every day, and
I did.
You adored Leslie.
Yes.
All you were trying to do the right thing for your children and Leslie. And sometimes that may not have seemed, but it really came through when I read your story, and 15 years of
struggle.
Yeah, struggle, but
struggle and confusion and stress.
Yeah.
And a lot of
love.
And that love was made manifest, I think, or solidified by my thinking about what I said. So I'm going to be teary before. In church, when I married Leslie, I vowed, it's a sacred vow I gave before God to look after her.
Yeah.
And that's what underpinned, I think, me never even considering giving up. It's not because I was a hero. It was because I had made a promise. And I took it completely seriously.
Yeah. And you know what? I would like to think that we still honor Leslie in this conversation. she lives on in the stories we tell. And if her story and your story can help another father, another relationship, that's why we're doing it, so, and I'm sure all the wonderful things you've told me about Leslie, that
I loved her to bits. I loved her to bits.
Exactly. Well, look, Howard.
And I love Annie to bits.
I know you do as well. And that's actually the hope, the wonderful relationship you have there. And that's another story in itself, isn't it? The way that came about.
That one will cost you. This one was free.
That's the part 2. That's the teaser for maybe another one.
That's a teaser, yeah.
Howard, thank you so much for your time. Real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for setting this all up. It's a good thing.
It's been good. It's been good. I look forward to the stories of insight it gives other people as we go through this.
Thank you, Johnny.
God bless you, Howard. Wow. So there you go. Thank you, Howard, for your story, for your storm. And I hope that's of value to other dads who maybe are going through something similar, maybe not as acute, maybe not as intense, but it may be some useful lessons there. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, Howard doesn't go to this place regularly. So it was like opening up a box. And there are a number of reflections Howard had after the call, which I just want to kind of add here. And also one reflection I had after the call as well. Howard messaged me and said probably the hardest thing he had to do during that phase he didn't even mention. And that was, in Howard's words, was the sudden and traumatic switching from one role to another and then suddenly switching back. That was the hardest bit, having to switch from dad to cook to shopper to laundryman to chauffeur to homework tutor while still working full time. And Howard had to do that at a very acute phase for a very long time. The other thing that I reflected on was the fact that Howard mentioned the commitment he made during his marriage vows. And I think often people think that that commitment is like the icing on the cake. It's like we love each other and here's the proof that we love each other. We're just going to tell everybody. But the commitment anybody who's been married makes is I'm going to do these things and I don't know how hard it's going to be. I'm going to love you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to honor you. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I think the interesting thing was for me that Howard said that commitment generated something which allowed him to cope in the future. So it's just interesting. It's something I'd never really reflected on before, that a commitment isn't just the final icing on the cake. It actually generates something, and it generates something we can pull on through some of the hardest times of our lives. So I hope there's some value for you there. Please follow the podcast, subscribe, share it with anybody you think this could be of value to, and have a great week.